Hey, good morning or good afternoon to our faithful friends on the East Coast, the right coast, and down in Florida. So it's always good to have people from around different places. All right, Kurt Gamlin, if you're just checking in for a first time, either live or in the Memorex world, pastor at First United Methodist Church of McHenry, and we just get together and spend some time. Recently, we've been talking about this book, and I'm desperately trying to get those talks now. I'm learning about YouTube a little bit to get those put together. So I thought as we begin this week, there we go. It would be good just to do kind of a recap of some of the things that I've said I think we need to be aware of. We've talked in this time together about loneliness, and because of that, I've been encouraging people to pick up the phone, phone a friend. Some of us remember that game, right? Isn't it Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something? Well, of course we all do. Wouldn't it be great if it'd be as simple as phoning a friend? Well, it could be far more valuable than any amount of money. Your calling someone could just really make a difference to them. We were shocked by some of the statistics that we found out that actually loneliness has oftentimes the same, or not oftentimes, statistically has the same effect on our health as obesity and smoking. And that to me was an eye-opener, to say the least. It has certainly ramped up any additional concern that I would need to have ramped up. And so go ahead and pick up the phone. And if you are one who thinks you're struggling with loneliness, go ahead and pick up the phone as well. And just pretend that that person that you call, you're calling for them. Okay? And that's okay. Yeah, we won't tell. All right, the other thing I'd like to make mention of is so we don't get the Corona 15, okay? The Corona 15 is like the freshman 15. That's just from sitting around too much and eating food that's not good for us. I heard this week that, I heard this morning that 70% of takeout orders are from they're not really food groups, but two food types, okay? Here's your chance if you want to take a guess. 70% are from two food types. I think one would, well, they might both be obvious upon reflection. Pizza and Chinese. Okay, so everyone's doing takeout these days, right? And 70% of takeout is comprised of Chinese. I'm O for O there. And pizza, yeah, guilty as charged. So we have had a few pizzas and yeah, some good comfort food. Another 8%, so we're up to 80% now. Another 8% is chicken wings. Okay, so maybe if you get an amen for a chicken wing. I'd be O for chicken wings as well. So when you add all those up, we're not ordering out a lot of salads, are we? So anyway, just watch what you eat, and then I've also encouraged people to get up and move it, right? So I don't know. I just picked a number out of the air. I've suggested 3 times a day, moving for 15 minutes, if possible for you. Hopefully it is, without stopping. Get your heart elevated. And if you need to climb up and down the stairs, go ahead and do that. I heard about a guy who ran 100 miles in his, it was like crazy. He ran 100 miles in his small apartment because he wanted to do 100 miles a week for 100 weeks. Okay, 100-mile race for 100 weeks. Okay, and so since he was completely quarantined, he had to make, in his little place, he had to do 60,000 laps, okay? And can't remember what number it was, every 30 laps or so, he had to go the other direction so he didn't burn out his knees. It took him, because he was going so slow, 60 hours. All right, so there's some dedication for you. So anyway, I don't expect you to do 100 miles in 100 weeks, but what can you do, right? What can you do? And I would encourage you to do something. So anyway, all right. All right, so where are we at now? Well, we are thinking about those things, thinking about some friends who are really struggling right now, and we want to offer up prayers for them. Let me mention this too, just really thankful. Good friend Rick had all plans to be moving out to Arizona this past Thursday, I think, and showed up after calling and found out that after having called repeatedly to find out if it was okay, found out couldn't bring his dog, came home, struggled with whether or not, he would have to give up his best friend in life at this point. And a good friend Kyle then came along, and they're going to make a road trip out of it with Kyle and a couple of his grandsons. And so it's just really nice that friends can come along like that and support one another. So kudos to them. Big thumbs up to friends who come along at really important times in our lives. And if you've got a dog and the thought of having to leave a dog behind when you move was just ripping him up. So anyway, enough of that. All right, so that's our good news for the day. Friends come alongside. So one of the things I just want to reiterate is that this is about taking our time, okay? And so with this, I like sometimes to throw out a statement, and again, I so much wish this was more conversational, and if we can figure out how to do that, I would welcome that. But in his section on study, okay, so we've entered into the celebration of discipline, or the celebration of activities, inner activities, which lead to spiritual growth. And I hope I've said that enough so some of you are like, yeah, we know the mantra, okay? So the first one is meditation, right? Maybe we should do a checkup, Monday morning checkup. We could be Monday morning quarterbacks. How are we doing? Because this is a book, as many books are, which if we just read it, but we don't do it, it will have been time, dare I say, well spent, but not time spent as well as it could have been. And so meditation, and again, I find myself racing around, not engaging in these things, and I want to be careful, not engaging as much as I would like. So we had meditation, and then differentiated that from prayer. Meditation is often misunderstood, mischaracterized, and also something that sometimes is spoken down upon by those who see themselves as deeper, more mature Christians. But it is a historic activity of the Christian faith. So meditation, prayer, fasting. Oh, we covered fasting quick. The joke of that was someone was listening to this as they were making cookies and ice cream, and so just to fully enjoy that moment, then they brought over some of those cookies and ice cream for us. So we thank you very much for doing that. And but now we've come to study, and I really kind of feel myself hitting the brakes again on study, much in the same way that I felt like I hit the brakes on meditation and prayer. So the question: study is an exacting art involving a labyrinth of details. To convince people that they must learn to study is a major obstacle. So, agree, disagree. To convince people that they must learn to study is a major obstacle. I want to say this. I don't know how pedagogy is going these days, the art of teaching, but my general sense is that teachers today are far more in tune with teaching our children, grandchildren, how to study than the product that I received. I think pretty much, when we went through, I mean, I hated history. Did I say that loud enough? History teachers? I hated history. That wasn't until I had a fascinating history teacher in college. Then I went into minor in history because in all my previous years of history, it was just like, Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1400. It was just a bunch of data. But understanding how that data points came together and more looking at trends and themes and then, I need to know how many revolutionary, battles were fought or something. So I do think that today's children are given a broader education in that they are really, the teachers work hard in teaching them the desire to learn and that they want to learn, lifelong learners. That's their motto, isn't it? So where are you at with study? Now, I remember, and study again involves humility. Over here he writes, it becomes obvious that to study demands humility because to study, in a sense, says, I know that I don't know everything. And it's far easier to turn on the TV if you're like into watching the news and have them tell you what oftentimes amounts to really nothing, or to sit back and just watch something than to engage the brain. So I'm hoping that as we talk about study, that we just won't talk about it, dear friends, that we will actually engage in it. But study demands humility, and it requires an understanding that I don't know everything. One of the clearest examples of this, so for a few years I'd had a Wednesday morning Bible study at one of the churches I was at, and darn, the book's right over here. I didn't bother to look at it. But anyway, so I was like, well, they'd run out of your typical, books on, this that were about. Well, today we're going to study the book of Colossians. It's got the teacher knows the answer, teacher asks the questions type of things. And so I really wanted to give them a book that I thought would really expand their mind, get them thinking. But it was also a pretty challenging book, and not so much intellectually as challenge some of the presuppositions that they'd had. And I don't know, we'd been chugging along, 10 or 12 people in the study, and it went from, when we started the book, we had 10, next week we had 8, next week we had 6, then we had 4, and then, I don't know, and then I'm like, so I started asking people, and I began by saying, you're not going to agree with everything that this author says, but that's okay. In some sense, what's the point of reading a book upon which we just accept everything they say? It's really not life-changing for us. And without fail, every one of them said that those that had quit coming was they could not agree with what the author was saying, but furthermore, they could not dispute what he was writing. And so that was what was incredibly frustrating to them. So no matter what they were going to hear and read and have kind of in black and white, their presuppositions were so baked into the cake then that they couldn't even wrestle with it. Because I said, well, come back and let's have, just discuss it. Say, just even say, what, this guy is taking me, wants to take me into an area that I think is dangerous. Like, okay, let's have the discussion. So when I think of his statement to convince people that they must learn to study as a major obstacle, that's the story that comes to my mind. Was that people were terrified of looking, and this was looking at the Bible in a way that was untenable to them, but also in a way that they could not argue with. So, all right. So I find myself studying his book, and of course his book is trying to get us to study the Bible, but I would suggest and feel like has broader, particularly this chapter, has broader application. So he says that when we read or study a book, the first reading involves, and I don't think he's talking about like you have to read the book 3 times. He says the first reading involves understanding the book, what's the author saying. The second reading involves interpreting the book, what does the author mean. The third reading involves evaluating the book, is the author right or wrong. He says we give critical analysis of a book. We give a critical analysis of a book before we understand what it says. And I'm looking for another quote here. Where's my quote? All right, not going to find it. Sorry about that. All right. So, but one of the things he does mention is that sometimes study comes up dry, and that we have to just we have to keep sticking with the book. It's very different than devotional reading. We go to the devotional reading to ask, what's this have to say to us, and study involves asking the question first, what was the original intent of what the author was writing? And friends, that's such an important piece when we begin to have doctrine and theology and beliefs, is original intent. And so that asks the question, so when Paul tells the people at Ephesus, or is it Galatia, I can't remember which right now, forget all that, it was Timothy, says, that women should cover their hair, they shouldn't speak in church, and have those kind of admonitions. If we just strictly approach that from a devotional standpoint, then women should be, covering their hair, not speaking in church. So there are many passages in which we're quite willing to say, well, that day was different, right? But then we look at other passages and we say, oh no, it's written in the Bible, so therefore it has to be the case, forever and ever, amen. Bound in black, trimmed in gold, kicked out of heaven, given to us, as the story goes. And so study and the formation of theology always, is kicks off by not asking what's this mean to me, but what was the author's intent as he wrote it to the people at Ephesus, as he wrote it to the people at Galatia, as he wrote it to the people at Corinth, and those are just some of the New Testament references. What are each of the 4 Gospels? So I appreciate those who stick out this and who stick out the study, because it's not easy. He writes, I've discovered the most difficult problem is not finding the time, but convincing myself that study is important enough to set aside time for. And I heard someone say a couple weeks ago, all those things that we said that we would do if we had more time, are we really doing them? Because we now have a lot of time on our hands, don't we? Well, I want to mention one of the things that came out of my study, because one of the things that we've been talking about, of the 4 things, remember, is that concentration, repetition, comprehension, and reflection. And so one of the passages that I lifted up last week as we were talking about study is Jesus's passage about being the Good Shepherd. Okay, and I want to read a portion of that again. Jesus said, I assure you that whoever doesn't enter the sheep pen through the gate but climbs over the wall is a thief and an outlaw. And the one who enters through the gate of the shepherd, and the one who enters through the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The guard at the gate opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. Whenever he has gathered all his sheep, he goes before them, and they follow him because they know his voice. They won't follow a stranger, they will run away, because they don't know the stranger's voice. Those who heard Jesus use this analogy didn't understand what he was saying. So then he continued, right? I assure you, I am the gate of the sheep, and all who came before me were thieves and outlaws. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief enters only to steal, kill, and destroy. I came so that you might have life, indeed that you could have life to the fullest. So what I pointed out was that it was in drawing all of our collective attention to this that really my Sunday sermon came about, right? Because if you want to listen to it either on Facebook or over on our YouTube channel, well, we talked about what does it mean what are those things that come into our lives that want to steal, kill, and take life away from us. But it was in kind of letting that passage just kind of sink in that all of a sudden this passage that I had overlooked and I just kind of walked on by is perhaps a better language for it. In verse 2, the one who enters through the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. I was just imagine, there's so much language that Jesus is the good shepherd. But here we are told that those of us who enter through the gate, we become the shepherd of the sheep. And that was really an exciting insight for me. And it really just came out of this study together. So I thank you, those of you who are taking this journey with me and taking a look at these passages. So if you want to go back again, I would invite you. That's John chapter 10. And then we read down through verse 13. I am the good shepherd, and my sheep know my name. And then down to 27. My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. I give to them eternal life. They never die, and so no one will ever snatch them away. Just focus, concentrate, have repetition, comprehension, and then reflection. Well, that's, I think, our journey for today. I again want to lift up those people who are struggling. I want to pray for just the horrific outbreak that we've heard in our meat packing industries. Made a quick dive into the local Aldi's yesterday, and I don't know if it's the result of the meat packing industry or a result of people panic buying, but the meat section looked exactly like it did just a day before the quarantine went into effect here in Illinois. So there are two maybe 10-yard long meat open refrigerated spaces there at the Aldi's, and they had one little prepackaged thing in one. Then the other had about 15 or 20 things in it, but it's completely taken down. So, but if it requires all of us to learn a new way of eating, there's plenty of pinto beans to be had, and there's plenty of protein, and their health, I believe, is worth it. And I do hope that they are not forced to go back to work before safe conditions can prevail and adequate testing can take place. So we want to keep them in our prayers. Pray for our the people who hold elected offices, that they would hold themselves to high standards. Continue to keep in our prayers the people who are responding, whether it's the people working in the fields, the drivers who are driving ambulances, all those people. Again, just invite you to take some deep breaths. It's one of the things that I notice. It's really easy to take shallow breaths. The kind that really forces the chest out, and sometimes I want to, but that's not the idea. In fact, it's just the opposite. Try and force those shoulders down. Breathe in through your nose, and as you do, kind of breathe in and sense that presence, that wonderful fragrance of life. You can breathe in the words of affirmation. Jesus' words are saying to us, I am the good shepherd. I hold on to you. Then we turn our palms over, and through the pursed lips, we push out the anxieties within our life, the frustration, the fear. So I invite you just to do that on your own, breathing in, pushing out, praying for those who you love, you care for, you're concerned about. Pray your blessing upon them. Remember, we talked about saying a prayer where we imagine their healing and their wholeness. It's insane. It's powerful, because some way that will come through to them. So those people you're concerned about, imagine them walking in healing and wholeness. So Lord, we thank you for this time together. I pray for those who travail this time with me. I really appreciate it, because this is something that is benefiting me. We long for the time when this can be more interactive in some way. And as always, we pray for a blessing in our lives so that we can be a greater blessing in the lives of others. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. All right, well, an unabashed commercial then. Didn't have too many. Our Wednesday at 7 o'clock, I'm actually going to post it on our, I think the Facebook page, the movie. And it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, it was kind of tough, but I appreciate it. But that's a part of what study is, right? Study takes us into places where we don't understand things. I mean, that study takes us back to being a child and saying, yeah, I don't get this at all. And so, last week we looked at materiality. That's a big word, but it just took me in a different direction, and I found it really, really beneficial. I appreciate those who showed up this week. We'll move on to the next topic. And then if you know anybody who's got any younger kids, so we're reading this week, I think, oh yeah, here it is right here. Cordelia, okay. Got a good reader of children's books in my church here, and she's just pumping me full of these good books. Just looks awesome. Artwork is fantastic. All right, that's it. You have a great day. God bless, and thanks for being with me. Bye now.